Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Octant Community Meeting. Today is May 13th, 2020, and today is going to be full of demos. We've got Wayne, who's going to do some demos of plugin docs and the current master.
Well, hopefully Sam's going to be doing the plugin docs demo, but
All right.
yeah. So I just wanted to run through the current master. Well, there's actually some branches that emerged into this too, but just kind of like what we've been working on over the last couple of weeks and show everyone some of the updates, and then hopefully, well, I'll show the plugin docs that we've been working on as well, but hopefully Sam is able to connect and walk through those. Sam's done most of the kind of like trailblazing on that stuff. So yeah, so I just wanted to, I'll share my screen, and I just wanted to walk through a few things and show folks what we're working on. And then after that, we can talk and go from there. So there's a few, and mostly I'm just running down. So last week we talked about some of the features that we've been working on. Most of those have landed and merged. Some of them are real close and have been, they're currently merged into the branch that I'm showing here. But I just wanted to walk through some of those features so people could see what we were going to be doing. So the one that's pretty neat that is that's really easy to show is Brian recently added some status around deletes, and so it's pretty great because you get kind of some instant feedback as you're working with your resources. So now when you, for example, like delete this pod, you can see that here's the one that's being deleted, here's the new one that got created, and then this is all just running, refreshing. So when that resource is finally cleaned up and out of the system, it will go away. The cool part about this is that when you start to get into deleting lots of things, you can kind of get a good insight into how all these things interact with each other. So, just there it goes, it's gone. So what I wanted to show was, like, for example, some folks have talked, they were asking about, like, how do I delete multiple things, right? I'm sick of having to go through and I don't want to have to delete all these pods one at a time. Well, that's kind of why we show all of these things under your workload. So what I'm doing here is I'm filtering my workload down to the one I'm interested in. In this case, it's this quad deployment that I have. And by filtering with this label, I'm able to see the deployment, the pods, and the replica set that represent those pods. So for example, say I came into here, I added a couple more replica sets to my deployment. It scaled up to 5. And then I was like, oh, you know what? When I scaled up to 5, it grabbed the new image. My image fetch setting is set to never. So my old ones didn't, they didn't update. So what I want to do is I want to delete all of these pods. Yeah, I could go through one at a time, or the option is to just delete the replica set that is controlling them, right? All of these will get wiped out. My deployment is still there, so it will do what it's supposed to do and attempt to recreate the replica set and recreate all of the pods. So in a short period of time here, we'll see them all come back online. You see the ages have all updated to all being restarted, and now all of these are running on that new image, and I only had to do a single action item. So that's just one of the ways that we're kind of giving you some more visual feedback around what's going on as you're working through different things in the cluster, as you're taking actions against your resources. But also, it's now that we're adding some of these features, you're starting to see why we've been displaying things in the way we have and why we weren't hiding certain elements. So having access to that replica set is what gives us the ability to easily delete a large set of pods all in one swoop. So that feature is going to be in the next release. It's currently, the PR is up. It's approved. It'll be merged here very shortly, so it'll probably end up as part of the nightly. There is some more work we want to do around it, specifically around changing some of the styling and getting some of the phase or the status of those objects as they're being deleted, making it a little more apparent that this is kind of a throwback to some of the old issues we have open around object status and pod conditions and other things, where Right now, we're not doing as good of a job as we want to be doing around like the actual status of like a specific pod or object. So there's some more work we have in the queue around that, and as we progress on that, we'll start to see a better kind of better view of what's actually happening with an object in more real time. I'm gonna defer, like I'm gonna see if Brian wants to add anything to this, because he was the one who kind of wrote this feature.
Oh, you missed the other part of the feature. So this is the hard piece. How do we make things obvious? So you notice on the left, there's a green button. There's green. That is the object status. Click on that. Oh, no, actually won't show anything for pods. Click on the one for deployment.
Yeah.
So you notice it just says deployment is okay. That is actually the same. If you click on the deployment name now, and then you go to the resource viewer, and you click on that, and notice it says deployment is okay. It's actually the same thing. So one of the ideas here was to be able to show more information and with less clicks, because not everybody goes to the resource viewer first. I kind of do, but that home page right there, now for every single item that we're showing something, like whenever that goes red and you click on them, it'll actually they might not show up, but if you click now, you see it for the deployment. The deployment's going to say, hey, in real time, it's like, I'm not happy, I'm not happy, I'm not happy, I'm happy. So that's something I'm trying to figure out, what does that look like? The colors are weird. I am a programmer, not a designer. And so it's better than it was. It was just like this weird barber pole thing, but that didn't really port over to the light background. So I just made it a solid color. So pretty cool thing. And just this is like in the theme of let's tighten up the front end as much as we can. Right now, you won't be able to see this, but all these things on the screen are made by these things we call printers. And we started this a couple of years ago in a little bit of a naive place, and now I think we're going to actually make this all better, less code. So it's going to make me happy, because this is a big change to make this little bit work here, but it works throughout the app, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Yeah. So that's coming. And so the next thing I wanted to show, this is something that Sam had worked on recently, and it is actually, this might be a bad example of it because I think there's only a single container here. Yeah. But some folks have been asking about how to get to, like they have a pod, it has multiple containers, and they want to be able to get to different containers within the terminal. So we still default to the first container that is in the list, but if there are multiple containers, now the terminal will work, and you can switch between those containers here just via a drop-down list. That was something that was part of the original, if for folks who remember the original terminal interface, it was you used to be in here on this container page, and you would click execute, and it would pop up this dialog, and you would have all these options that were confusing and hard to get, like you had to make a bunch of decisions. So we've been slowly adding back in those options, but with same defaults and without people having to jump through hoops to kind of understand what they want. So now you can click on a terminal. Looks like I have a bug, of course. Try a different one. You can click on there. When you go into the terminal, you'll have a drop down, and you'll be able to select through the different containers. So that's something that a few folks have asked for. So it's in there now. The other pretty cool thing is this is a lot of people were hitting this before. I mean, I think it's cool, but because it just fixed it and things now work. But before, if you had unclaimed persistent volumes, let me get rid of my label there. This would actually crash Octant. It would throw a 500 and a panic, and it was not great. So now you can see that this is pending. No one has claimed it. So you can go in and actually look through unclaimed persistent volumes, and then you can now I'm going to just apply this. So now you can see that this Nginx is starting to claim it. It's bound now, and it's all there. So you can see this stuff happening now in real time. When we first put in the viewer for the persistent volume claims, if stuff was impending, it didn't show up, and then we fixed that. But then when it showed up, well, it still didn't show up. When we fixed that, there was some status issues that we didn't account for that would cause it to crash the view, and now everything is working great. So that's a pretty neat, like it's a pretty important fix. It's not neat, it's important. So I'm glad that we got that in there. But it's really neat to see all this working now, where I can be watching persistent volume claims and see them get bound in real time. It's pretty cool.
We should have object status for a persistent volume claim. We should probably put that in there to make it show, hey, it's not bound. This thing is not going to work like you think it will.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I wonder,
so
especially.
Let me show you the history of this. The history of this. So if you said for most of the objects, if it says that if it's like V1 persistent volume claim is okay, what I did is if I didn't know, I assumed it's okay. So I took the API version and the kind, and I just said it's okay. That's the default. So we would just have to go in there and just add a type for PVCs.
Yep, that's great. I think we'll want to do that. We'll create an issue for it so that we can remember to do it. And then the final thing that we did recently, where is it? Oh man, you know what? So I closed my notes. That's my problem. I had a note of everything that we did. It's in actually the overview, not the overview, the markdown. Hold on, let me look. So, oh yeah, it's the I'm stalling. I'm just saying I had to stall. Give me a second. Where's the drop down, the object list delete. Yep. Oh yeah, this is what it was. So now the secrets. If I go into the overview, I think it's under here. No, where are they? We show no.
Are you getting ready to show the service accounts? And
Yes.
Yeah, you should go to service account, and then you can see it from there.
There we go. Yeah. We now show the secrets that are part of the service accounts. Link right to them.
Yeah,
so very useful.
That feature is super useful. That came from, I was doing TGIK 2 weeks in a row, and the first time I'm like, oh, I can't see this, and I need to know what this is. So I went and looked. And this funny thing is, this is how coding goes. It was mostly in there. Like mostly, for some reason, it got disabled. And so I went there, cleaned it back up, turned it back on, and added secrets. So now it's pretty nice that shows up there.
Yeah, and then I mentioned this last time. I think I can show it just in the dev tools. But we fixed the so now when you request the index page and you look at the headers, you will see that the cache control now contains the no cache and no store for the index page. I mentioned this at the last community meeting, but this will fix the problem. So once this release goes out and folks do another hard refresh, we will no longer, after that, be caching this index page, which means people will no longer have to hard refresh to get any of the UI changes that we make. We know that this has been a constant like point of frustration. We get every time we do a new release, we get at least 3 or 4 issues being open saying that this tab is broke or these don't work, and it's because the old UI is still trying to consume the new API stream, and those things don't align, and it causes things to break. So people no longer have to do a hard refresh after they get this release, and they do a hard refresh, which will be very nice for everyone, including us. That is all I had for the main Octant demo piece. I wanted Sam to show off the work that he's been doing with the plugin documentation, because it's pretty neat and it's coming along well. So if you don't mind doing that, Sam, that'd be great.
Cool. I will share my screen and hope it works. Let's see. I think it's this one. Let's see. No, wrong one. Let me try again. All right. Let me see. How's this? Cool. All right. So this is the.
Sorry. Can you zoom in a little?
Zoom it a little more. How about now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So this is going to be a component reference for Octant, especially around plugins, because what Octant really does is it uses the Clarity library for the front end, and all of that is really just taken away from the user. They're just writing Go, and they spit out these components using Clarity. And so one thing that we really struggled with was how to show what a plugin might look like without actually having to write the code. And what this essentially does is give users a chance to say, hey, this is a delete button, and they could interact with it, and it'll actually look like how it would in Octant, because this entire site also uses Clarity, so it uses the same CSS, fonts, and so forth. So they'll get a demo of how to interact with the component. In this case, it's a button, and if they hit the delete, they'll get a modal, and it'll show the Go code that will be used in a plugin, and also a JSON reference. And this is really for the more advanced users who might be attempting to do this in a language other than Go. And if they can construct this JSON schema, they could also recreate this delete button if they wanted to. And pretty much we went through and went and did this for almost every component. This isn't live anywhere yet. This is done on Netlify. And for our repo, what we'll actually end up doing is taking out the Netlify configuration, because this will still be used in a sort of in a mono repo. So Netlify gets confused if you have a single configuration file in the root directory. So we'll be a little bit more reluctant on the UI, but what this will let us do is put this against the subdomain, and it'll be another resource for plugin authors to try out what they want to put in their plugin before actually having to do it. And so hopefully this will reduce a little bit of friction and encourage plugin authors to come up with new stuff.
This is amazing, by the way. This is going to help us a lot, especially when we have our Octant hackathon in June. By the way, if you guys don't remember the dates, it's coming up. It's in a month. So the dates are June 17th to June 23rd. This is going to be huge. It's going to help people figure out, and get educated on how to build a plugin.
Yeah, we had to continue on that. We have issues right now that are currently in progress that are specific around this documentation you're seeing now, a better getting started page for plugin authors, as well as a better getting started page for folks who want to get Octant installed, but are more of an advanced user and want to get it installed from source, so that they can write plugins or hack on things. So all of those issues are currently in progress. And the goal is to have a much better documentation, including this plugin preview, all ready for the hackathon.
Yeah, and quick shout out to the team. I think documentation-wise, this is pretty cool, because this is the first team I've worked on where we all said, all right, let's just sit together for a couple hours and knock this out and build momentum behind it. And it's something that I don't think it's very common among engineering teams. So thank you, Wayne and Milan, for jumping in on that sprint and getting the ball rolling on this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you all. And by the way, we have a doc writer that is in our extended team now. So if we need some other resource, like another pair of eyeballs or someone to help us write some more things, please bubble it up some, talk to Stephanie, and she can work with Amanda and figure out when and where we can get some of those resources. So I know it's not the core skill set of all our us as engineers to actually write docs and write these things. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not. But if you want to delegate some of that, we have someone that, this is, they're really good at this.
Excellent. Good to know. Thank you.
So this is great, except for it's not, because it shows that how awkward creating all these things are. So thank you, Sam, for doing this. But no thank you, Sam, for showing me how awkward all of it is. So now we need to go back and fix them all. So you
had the same exact thing. Like when we were working on it, we're like, man, some of these are just awkward. Yeah. Same exact feeling.
Try to get them all. I mean, this just brings out that we either should be able to create them all with functional options or have a builder pattern type thing, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't. That wasn't very nice of you, Brian, to do that to people. Yeah. But still, no, very cool, Sam. I was thinking here, and this is how I got to that idea, that if we had a way to generate these through like functional options, then we could assume what they were, which means that instead of just being a static site, what you actually could do is you could go both ways. You could go from code to JSON, because we can pretty much guess what that's going to look like. But you could also go from JSON to code, and you could see the live preview at the same time. Which gets me into something else that's I think I've only told Milan about this so far. Another idea that I had is that we're not front-end people, which is probably pretty evident. But front-end people like this thing called storyboards. And what storyboards are a way for us to experiment with a lot of the front-end code without putting it in the app. So we can just set up scenarios for it. So that actually should be hitting master soon. And I don't know how useful it'll be for like the people who use Octant, but it'll definitely be more useful for the team or people wanting to contribute to Octant, because we can definitely show a lot more. We can show a lot more things being used, because sometimes there's definitely a big gap between what's possible and then what you think you can do, and we can probably show a lot of that in a better fashion. And we're getting to the point where some of these things we want to do in the front end are bigger than one commit or two commits. So we need some place to stage these things.
Yeah, that's great. I'll look forward to that. We also talked about potentially generating, I think touching on what you were saying, generating some of this both directions, so that you could have a tool where plugin authors were essentially able to sketch out what their UI would look like. Right.
So I wasn't going to surprise you with this, but you'll probably see it pretty soon. On the back end, all of the models for what we're using, so all the translation of these models, so for button group and table and data grid and whatnot, are we maintain them in the Go, and we also maintain the TypeScript version. We have enough code to generate them, so we'll probably just start maintaining them in the Go, and we'll use a generator to generate the TypeScript.
Yep.
And make that work. Maybe one less place where things can change or deviate.
Yeah, and 100%. I mean, Go damn near gives you that for free with the annotations on the objects, so it's like we might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, we already have it with the. Right. Actually, we don't even have to add a new annotation. We can just use the existing JSON annotation, and we can just deal with that one. So yep. It'll be fun to write.
Well, that's all I had on the agenda today. Was I wanted to give folks a demo of the master and show what we've been working on doc-wise. And anyone else have anything to add? Brian, you got anything else? Sam, Milan?
So last week you talked about that client thing I was writing.
I did, just briefly. I mentioned it.
It doesn't. There's no update. I literally have not touched it in a whole week. Okay. But the reason I haven't been is because I've been working on this other thing. Because one thing we're trying to do with Kubernetes is Kubernetes was not made for UIs, and we went down a path, and it's actually pretty hard to get a real-time UI out of Kubernetes and be dynamic at the same time. You'll see examples through other dashboards, but then you look really close and you realize that everybody cheated on the edge. So I want to get us to the point where we don't have to cheat on the edge, and we have a client that is closer to what we actually need and does not contains all the complexity because we're using Client Go. There's a lot of complexity all throughout the app just because of the way Client Go works. So that is an experiment, and I think another couple of weeks we might actually put it inside of Octant to start testing it out to see what it can actually. It should start being able to replace some things that we have. So
That sounds fun.
Mhm.
I have one request. Maybe Wayne, you, and Sam, and Stephanie, and Milan can huddle together and figure out, are there any fixes or improvements that we need to add? We talked a little bit about the plugin experience and the work that you all are doing with Sam leading. That's great, right? Is there anything else we need to look at before we actually get the hackathon up and running? Is there anything that, little things like this, like death by 1,000 cuts? I think Brian and I talked about it a few weeks ago as well. Like, there are little things that we can improve that will make everybody's lives easier. They're not individually, they're not big items, they're not important, but when you consider them all, they do have an impact. Maybe that's something to think about.
yeah, yeah. So it's interesting, and I actually, for everyone watching this, I like to caution you on plugins. We are very much pre 1.0, and we made some ideas on plugins, but taking in account for running in cluster, running out of cluster, running on multiple platforms, there's no guarantee. I mean, there's guarantee that we'll have a method for extension, then it'll be very close to what we have now. It'll look close to what we have now, but there will be no guarantees that our plugins will continue on as they are now, because it just might not be tenable, especially in cluster. It's not going to be tenable. So Wayne and we talk a few times every week, and ideas are flowing. So just keep that in mind. Um, Running in cluster and out of cluster is a difficult proposition, especially to do it well and then to do it safe.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, but running in cluster is months away from now, and in an effort for us to bring more folks to the Octant community, we need to make sure that we get more eyeballs on it, and this hackathon is going to be a great way. Would people need to go and rework some of their plugins in the new architecture that could be in cluster, or would they have to? We have to give them some automation that will transfer them from Go to Python or something else? Maybe. People, we're going to put caveats there that this is pre 1.0. Some things are subject to change, but Octant is there today, it's available, it can deliver value. Come and write your Octants, and you get to basically either automate or make easier visualizations from some of the things that are important to certain folks, and we'll take it from there. I mean, there's caveats to it. Totally agree.
All right, sounds good.
By all means, I would love it if I have 100 people join the hackathon and come and create like 10, 15 plugins or even 5 plugins. And then later on, we help them migrate them. We get 2 touch points with the community.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Does anyone else have anything to add for the meeting today?
I think the sound of helping 100 people migrate their plugins does not sound awesome.
I said 100 people come in and develop 5 plugins, and we'll help migrate those 5 plugins, right?
Yeah,
but maybe that will force us to add better tooling.
So, yeah, as Brian said, we are thinking about plugins. We know that people have plugins that they've created now that are popular, that folks like. We are not just going to leave people in a lurch, right? There will be some path. We don't know what it looks like. We have no clue what it looks like yet, but there will be some path to make sure that current plugins can operate in this new world, either automated, manual, documented, whatever. There will be some path to get you there. And so, yeah, we still want to encourage folks to write plugins, but as Brian said, we want to be very clear that we are, especially with adding in cluster, it's very early, and things are kind of up in the air, and but we're not just gonna abandon people who've created plugins already. We're gonna, we'll be there. So
and the gold standard for me is that we find one or two of those developers of plugins that love Octant that much that they want to come and contribute as a core developer of Octant. And they actually extend their experience and contributions beyond just plugins. That's
so
really
far,
what
all of our plugin authors who have created plugins of any magnitude have already all contributed upstream.
Yep.
Because it is early. So if you're going to be a plugin author right now in Octant, you're likely also going to be an upstream contributor. So.
Exactly. So that's actually a huge net benefit. Like we want to get more eyeballs on this from the community, and it doesn't hurt to get it out there, get our name out there, pretty much.
Sure. Yep.
So. As soon as we actually create the posters, so Amanda is working with some of the branding folks to create a poster. As soon as we do that, it's going to go everywhere. TGIK, all of the Kubernetes development forums. We're going to push it to everybody. Hey, you're interested in this? Come, help us write some plugins, win some cool prizes, eat virtual pizza.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, everybody. I guess that's it for today.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good day.
Have a good one. Bye.